Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Expanders Club podcast. My name is Brooke Harris.
Hello, Brooke. I'm Maddie Island. It's nice to be here.
Nice to be here. Nice to see you, Mads. As you know, I'm a little out of the loop, hence the wet hair and hat. I am on a little family vacation.
Girl is in vacay mode, straight out of the pool to record the app. What dedication.
You know, and very on topic since this week's episode is about burnout.
Brooke, here's the ultimate question we all want to know. How's your HRV?
Girl, I had one day where it was 28, which is like
record high. And
every day it's been over 20, which is like, it's really big for me. Yes. So, we'll see if I can maintain it when I get back home, but there's nothing like a vacation to help, like just take a little bit of the edge off, right?
It just puts you at peace. Are you feeling like you're able to fully switch off?
No. But I have there's big chunks of time where I am. Like, I mean, when you're swimming in the ocean with your 2-year-old, you kind of don't have any other choice but to pay attention. And she's just like, no fear. She doesn't want to wear swimmies. She wants to be in there without floaties, swimming by herself. She obviously can't swim by herself, but like, she just wants to jump up and down in the water. Like, so it's really fun and really cool to witness, but like, you can't take your eye off for a second or be daydreaming or anything like that. So that helps with some presence.
Wow. Attention on the little runaway.
Yes.
Of course she's got no fear. I love that.
I know. It is so good. And that's something I've been thinking about and trying to work on a lot lately is like my psychic energy, in the sense of when you're in the moment doing something, like being in that moment. I've noticed like kids are such a mirror and such a, just like shine a light on things. Like I've noticed on days when I pick her up from school and then obviously have time to hang with her after school, where I'm like preoccupied, and like, even if I'm, quote unquote present and playing with her, but I have work or some other thing on my mind, I notice how it impacts her, and her attention span is different and her energy is different versus when I'm just like fully there physically and mentally. She's so much more well-behaved, and like, it's just such a different experience. So that's something I am really trying to work on just in general, is like really being fully in the moment in every moment of life.
Because as a child, you cannot separate. The only thing, if your parent's not giving you attention, you just think it's because of you. You're like, what am I doing wrong? They don't love me. They're not giving me attention.
Yeah. And it's not even that it's more of like an energetic thing, because I can be fully giving her attention, but my brain's thinking about 10 other things. Right. And like she senses it and picks up on it.
So intuitive. Yeah. And sensitive. Oh,
so good reminder to like prioritize all of our physical energy, our psychic energy, all of that. Like, it all is kind of one,
Truly. Yeah. I went away on the weekend camping, and it was the topic of conversation of how happy we all were to put our phones away for the weekend. And we set intentions at the beginning of the weekend, as we do with this friendship group. And, all of us was just like, be present, just connect, just be here, or disconnect, but, connect with each other and disconnect from the world. And we all just felt so grounded and relaxing our nervous systems, and just so much calmer by the end of the weekend. It was truly a gift.
Yeah, I think everyone's feeling that. It'll be interesting to see how the summer goes, and after the summer, people's like engagement on social media or on their phones in general. But I'm feeling the shift, and actually that's something that's like a quote that Brooke in our in our episode today is with a good friend of ours, Brooke Ansley, who is an incredible hypnotherapist. And one of the things she talks about is like, before you, like, the first step to fixing anything is like being able to get calm, like having the ability to bring yourself to a calm place. Um, she says it much better. If you listen to the episode, you'll hear it. But I think that's really interesting. And so, for your example of like, okay, putting away the phones for a certain amount of time, that is one way to do it. You don't have to sit down and meditate to get calm. There's a lot of different ways you can start to take the edge off.
Yeah. And the place that you can come from when you're calm, you're able to dig so much deeper, in all the work that I'm doing, that we're doing, etc. If you're in a place of tension, if you're in a place of stress, your body is just trying to regulate. And so you can't actually learn and open up and tap into the emotion and go deeper and grow. So that's, with my work, it's like focusing, and Kit's work clearly, aka Brooke, focusing on at first regulating the nervous system, at first like bringing yourself to a place of calm, so that you then can step into that, like your mindset can actually come from a place of calm.
Yeah, you can't even show up in it. Like it's a basic, it's like a basic need, right? To be able to regulate yourself and your nervous system, like not even to do the work that we talk about on this podcast of like, the soul's journey, but just to show up as a decent human being. Like, you need to be able to regulate that. Otherwise, like, you're just going through life reacting, making poor choices, like hurting the people around you. Like, yeah, just being able to get calm could be a life-changing thing for some people.
Yeah, truly. And I love this episode with you guys, the conversation. Freaking love Brooke. And just speaking about, working with people in burnout, you're doing all the things that you think you should be doing. You're showing up, you're working hard, but you're like keeping on going, keeping the schedule full. You're drinking coffee to be able to stay alert, and you don't quite even realize the state that your body might be in. And that's, bringing awareness to burnout is incredible. And you can speak to this, Brooke, like having been through it yourself.
Yes. I have been burnt out. I am currently burnt out. And I love some of the awareness that Brooke Ansley brings to burnout and brings into the conversation, because it's totally preventable. Right. And a lot of us, whether we have felt it or not, a lot of us are on the track to burnout. And so from someone who has experienced burnout in a very deep way, I would say, like, stop it before you take action, before you completely hit the bottom of the hole, because recovering from it is so intense, takes so much work. It's like it's doable, obviously, but it's for me personally, I've shown up for myself in a number of ways for the past year and a half, and I'm still not out of it, and I know this, and we get into this in the episode, but a lot of it stems from, maybe all of it, and a lot of what Brooke talks about is the subconscious. And so she's a certified and incredible hypnotherapist, and she talks about rewiring the subconscious. That's what hypnotherapy is, or at least that's my understanding of what it is, and definitely what she does. I've done sessions with her recently, and it's actually making a huge difference. But we have these stories that we're conditioned with or that we bring on as children, and that it kind of becomes what dictates the way that we operate as adults. So for me, I've talked about before, I have this big, like, prove it energy, like, that came from my childhood of, let me prove how great I am. Let me prove how capable I am. Let me prove that I can work harder. And you start to filter all your actions through these subconscious stories and storylines. And that's what leads to burnout, where this is just conditioning. It's not actually what your soul wants or what's best for you or the way you were meant to be. That's conditioning and stories implanted by other people or interactions that then our ego takes on and is like, okay, here's the story and here's what you have to do to stay protected.
That's the thing. And we are in our subconscious minds, I've said this before, 90% of the time. And so that rules us. That rules how we act. That rules how we think. We believe what's going on in our subconscious, and it's all built up and learned over, from every little experience we've had in our life, every belief we've formed. So to hypnotherapy sounds so powerful in the sense that it opens that up. Let's be aware of what we're actually thinking of in our subconscious mind to rewire that and how that can change our state.
What you touched on first is you have to get calm to have an awareness of, you can't go into a hypnotherapy session and be like, cool, I don't know, all's good, I don't know, I'm just here to be hypnotized. You have to you have to have some kind of awareness of the stories or a place to start, at least where a hypnotherapist, someone who's trained, can be like, okay, let's go down this path. You can't come and have no self-awareness. So you do have to have that calm, the ability to get calm, have that self-awareness, and then go seek the different modalities and help.
Yeah, this is practice for sure. And like we say, it could be years and a lifetime of practice of bringing awareness to it. But this is it. This is the freaking work. And this interests me so much, and why I actually created a nervous system mastery online course, which is just the first stepping stone, because I've realized how important it is to first be able to regulate your nervous system. And this is tapping into your subconscious mind and bringing awareness to it. And it just includes some little techniques and tools that I use. Genuinely, when I sit down to try and do work and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just feeling anxious, I'm feeling dysregulated, I can't do this. These are genuinely the tools that I use to try and regulate my nervous system in a moment, and hoping that this can really help people recognize the first steps.
Yeah, I love that, because I know you have these tools, and we've talked about this so many times in so many different areas. When you have these tools and start to incorporate them, suddenly they just become a part of who you are. You start to recognize that anxiousness or the nervous system dysregulation faster, and then you're like, oh, cool, I'll just breathe, or I'll just do this, or just do that, and walk yourself through the steps. And then it's not a thing that impacts your day. It's a moment that you then take the opportunity to handle.
Yeah. And you just don't let yourself get there as often. For me, realizing when I was dysregulated, it's okay, well, I don't need more caffeine. I think maybe I do to focus, but actually I don't, because that's sending me more into dysregulation. That's making me feel more uneasy, more anxious. And a lot of people can't always correlate that. So it's okay, when are you feeling that in your body? Do you need extra caffeine? Do you need extra stimulation, or do you need the calm?
Yeah. So give us the 20-second spiel where it tells about the course and where people can find it.
Okay, amazing.
I think it's a really good place to start.
Yeah, it's just a 4-part course, and it begins by really recognizing what's happening in your mind and tapping into the beliefs and thoughts that you are constantly come up for you. And then it's about connecting these to the body and understanding how you can recognize how your thoughts then impact the feelings in your body: anxiousness, tightness in the chest, sweaty hands, all of these physiological signs. And then really doing exercises to help calm, bring yourself to a place of calm, be okay, feel it through the body, not labeling oh, I'm just an anxious person, I'm just a stressed person, this is just the way I am. It's no, in this moment I am feeling anxious in my chest. And so once you start to just witness it, you actually gain control over it. And that's when you can come from a place of power, being I've brought this in, I can bring this out of me. So then I can move forward. And it's a really simple course, and you can get it on the Expanders Club website, expandersclub.com, Nervous System Mastery. If you guys are feeling, just stressed, anxious, just a little scattered, you can't fully, maybe you're struggling to sleep, you're struggling to relax, concentrate, focus, this is a really good place to start, because connecting yourself to your body is so the work.
Yes. And it's a great first stepping stone, like you said, to kind of recognize and then practice calm. As we just said, the first places that you need to start in all of this. And then the work that I've done with Brooke, who we're talking to today, is she goes in through hypnotherapy. This is like a next level. Again, you have to be able to recognize, at least somewhat, have an idea of the issues, and have tools throughout the day. But she goes in and starts to rewire your subconscious, and essentially she explains it really well in the episode, but like implants new feelings around those memories. So it's like that's almost like the top down approach. There's like a bottom up and top down approach happening at the same time, where you can literally change the wiring in your subconscious and then accumulate the tools to when something comes up to help you get through it.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Brooke is amazing.
She's incredible. Maddie and I have been, Brooke and I, you'll hear, we've known each other for 12 years. And, you know, Maddie and I have been good friends with her for a long time. We have a special treat for you guys in the links.
Oh my God.
For this episode, Brooke Ansley, in her former life, was a country singer, and yours truly and Madeline Lucy were stars in one of her music videos.
Whiskey Wednesdays, my friends. Whiskey Wednesdays.
It's a catchy ass song, and you know the music video is pretty good, so just enjoy that. We will link that in the show notes.
Thanks for bringing that one back up, B.
Had to, you know.
We loved that.
Also, Brooke has been so generous to share a free link to her sleep hypnosis, which I highly recommend. It will give you a good taste of how she works, and also will get you some good sleep. She's offering a free 30-minute consultation to anyone who's interested. So we'll link her website and how you can contact her. And her name is Brooke Ansley. She is at Brooke Ansley Wellness on Instagram, and her website is brookeansley.com. She also has her own podcast called The Calm Edge Podcast, and I highly recommend checking that out. Sorry, her website is actually brookeansley.wellness.com. Couldn't read my own handwriting again. So this episode is really cool. Just like insane amounts of knowledge about the subconscious, about burnout, about the nervous system. I really enjoyed chatting with her. She's an incredible storyteller, incredible hypnotherapist, and just you can tell this is her passion, and she just knows so much about how the brain works, which like we all should kind of educate ourselves on, right? Like if we could understand a little bit more about how our brains work, we could probably help ourselves a lot better.
Truly. And it's so cool seeing Brooke in her power, like knowing her and seeing her through her transitions of life, and just seeing her so at peace, like just practicing what she preaches, I think is the most inspiring thing. It's like, oh, you have transformed, and you are at just coming from such a confident, grounded place that I really, really respect her.
Yeah. So this is a good one to have your notebook next to you to take notes. It's a good one to share with a friend, maybe a friend who might be headed toward burnout or might be a little burnt out and maybe doesn't know. This could be a good way to drop some hints, or just a good way to start a conversation among your friend group. There's a lot of good stuff in here, a lot of things to talk about, and I just learned a lot from having this conversation, and I'm super excited for y'all to hear it, see what you get out of it.
That's right, y'all. Enjoy.
Y'all. We're bringing y'all back.
Bring y'all back.
All right. And as always, please rate, review, follow, and certainly come hang out with us on Instagram and TikTok at Expanders Club.
Amazing, guys. All right. Loved hearing you guys. Excited for you guys to hear it. Enjoy.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
So excited to have you. And I mean, look at us. Like, look at us. We've been friends for, how long have we been friends for?
I mean, I moved to LA in 2012, so that was 12 years ago, and I met you via email before I moved here.
Yeah.
So
that is wild. We've been friends for at least 12 years, and damn, through some weird phases, some weird shit.
Yeah, mostly me. Mostly you watching my train wreck, like Hollywood days.
I mean, the fact that you even, let's go there. The fact that you even lived in Hollywood compared to your life now is wild. But like Brooke Ansley, the musician, the pageant queen, the like, let's just go through your phases real quick for my enjoyment.
Yeah. Well, how far back do you want to go? Because pageant queen was before I even moved to LA.
So you guys, and I might drop y'all in this conversation just for fun because you inspire my southernness. So we are talking to Miss Maryland and Miss Tennessee, right? Is that true?
No, just Miss Memphis. I never actually won Miss Tennessee, but I was Miss Memphis my senior year of college when I was in Memphis, living there. And then when I moved home, I competed in Miss Maryland and I won. It was my last year before aging out.
Yeah,
But
you did.
real quick here, I was never a pageant queen, okay? I was doing it because of music. That's why I was there.
Okay. But I'm sure some of the pageantry was fun and it has stuck with, I mean, you know, I mean this in the like best light and the most loving way. Like you had a pageant girl era, even when I met you.
I don't know if I was ever technically a pageant queen, especially not compared to those gals in Tennessee. I did learn a lot of tricks in Tennessee. And that's when I came back to Maryland and I swept. Like I cleaned up. I learned everything I needed to learn in Memphis, Tennessee about winning a pageant. And then I moved back to Maryland and I won Miss Maryland and did the Miss America thing.
I love that. And well, whether you consider yourself a pageant girl or not, you are my pageant girl. And I think that like has served you in life really well. But so we'll start there. When I met, you were Miss Maryland, pageant girl, moving wide-eyed to LA to work with me, someone that you didn't know. And honestly, like I opened your resume because you had the same name as me. So
yeah.
And
which is a huge saving grace, by the way. I was moving to LA just to move to LA. Like I had nothing lined up. I had nowhere to live. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. I literally had no plan and really no money in my bank account. It was the dumbest decision I've ever made and also the best decision I ever made. But I was just applying to, I think it was the UTA job list, and you were the only person who replied to any of my applications.
It was meant to be. And also, aren't you kind of jealous of that girl? Like that was just so fearless and like was just like, oh yeah, I'll figure it, confident enough to freaking figure something that big out.
Yeah. And not be afraid and just know that it would all land.
Yes. I think we're all like clawing to get back to that place, or certainly that's a little bit of my experience. But okay, so you moved to LA, you're a pageant girl living in West Hollywood, working with me at a model staffing agency, which was its own whole thing. And let's tell everyone, I guess, where you are now. You are an incredible hypnotherapist, helping women every single day change their lives. You are married and you are very pregnant, expecting your first little baby boy very soon. So now what's the in between? How'd you get here?
I mean, it's such a process. It's funny because you said earlier, like, don't you miss like being that girl? And in some ways, yeah, but in a lot of ways, absolutely not. Like, I am so glad I'm here.
Yes. Yeah, fair.
It's just the mindset shift. And sometimes I don't know if it was moving to California and just being exposed to different mindset. I mean, even just like being exposed to yoga, like growing up in my family, like nobody did yoga. Nobody talked about mindfulness. No one talked about meditation. Nobody talked about like calming the mind. It was kind of just like we go, go, go. And I remember, Brooke, because it was probably like a year or two into me living in LA and I was working for you, not in a model staffing agency. I was working with you at another company because I just like you, it was like we were a package deal, right?
Exactly.
Like you'd leave one company and I would just go with you.
It worked.
It worked. But I remember that time you watched it kind of happen where I started going to yoga and I was like taking anxiety medications and depression medication. And I just remember feeling like I was constantly digging myself out of a hole. I didn't know what I want out of life. I just didn't have like a sense of grip on life. Like I just was chasing the next like dopamine hit, I guess, which I
Yeah.
think you could say plays in a little bit to me like moving to LA and like making these choices that were kind of like, I got to go there and I got to try something else and I got to relocate. And I just didn't have like a sense of like general overall like life satisfaction or well-being or any idea of like what I wanted to be when I grew up or what, I remember work to me too was kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. Work just sounds awful. Like to me, work was this horrible thing that you just sort of locked yourself into for the next 40 years. And that was also a lot of the conditioning that I
Yes.
got. Like you pick a job, you work for someone else, like you get health insurance. And it
Yes.
just sounded awful to me, but I thought that was the only way because that was the only modeling I had growing up, there were really it's funny, there weren't like entrepreneurs in my family, although I do think about it now. My mom and I were having a conversation. My grandfather worked for himself and he was an entrepreneur, but I was so young at the time. I didn't internalize a lot of that stuff, but now looking back, I see it.
Yeah.
And just a lot of like live in safety and fear, kind of like have to have consistent income, have to have insurance for this other company. Like I can't just go off and do my own thing. And you, on the other hand, always had this like, I learned a lot from you just working with you. I just remember like playing by the rules. That I think that's where like the pageant girl comes in, where I was just like, there are rules and we have to follow them, right? And you were kind of like, yeah, no, if there's a rule, we're going to go around it. And I learned a little bit of like street smart from you, where it was like, oh, they said you can't do that. Cool, find a way. That was like being your assistant was like, and sometimes I was like, this is really uncomfortable. I'm breaking these rules, and then it would work. And I'd be like, oh, interesting. Yeah. So you kind of started to expose me to that. And then I started going to yoga. And I remember driving one day on my way to see you in the kitchen in Venice that we were working in. I don't know if we're going to say any names, any company names here. It was a juice company at the time that wasn't Brookes, right?
They're dead.
Somebody
they're
else's
dead
company.
to us now.
Yeah. So I remember driving to the kitchen. I just remember feeling like I was driving and I felt a sense of like, I'm excited for the day ahead. I'm looking forward, like I feel good in my life. It was like, oh, I'm settled. And I remember thinking, I've never felt this before.
Wow.
It was like a Tuesday and I'm driving and I'm looking forward to my day. And it's not like I'm just trying to like get through the day as fast as I can to get the next dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And get time off. Like I just remember, and that was like a shift that I experienced from slowing down a little bit through yoga. That was hot yoga. I was an athlete. So like the other kind of yoga was too slow for me, but hot was enough to kind of be intense. It was like touching on my competitive side enough to get me in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were really encouraging at that time. I remember because you watched me kind of like start to transform, I think. And then fast forward, I ended up, working at a nonprofit and doing events. And then I kind of leaned into this really like busy woman, like burnout, people pleaser, saying yes to everything, not setting boundaries, totally burnout all the time, didn't feel authentic at all in that role. I learned a lot, but it just wasn't me. Like I just felt like depleted constantly and I wasn't sleeping. And then you kind of encouraged me of like, you always were so supportive of me in the alternative, like yoga and all this. And I had this idea to go back and get certified to teach. And then what happened? I entered an Instagram competition. Do you remember this for my yoga studio? They were giving away a free teacher training.
Oh my God. Yes. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I entered. I had a feeling, this is like a big moment for me. I had a feeling, I remember they're like, we're giving away free teacher training, 30-day Instagram challenge. And I was like, that's for me. And I entered this competition. I mean, competition, like you post once a day for 30 days and you go to yoga. And I remember after it was over, I kept checking my email and checking to see, like, and I didn't hear anything. And I was like, all right. And I stopped checking. And then, like, a week later, I go into class and one of the teachers is like, Brooke, where have you? We've been trying to get a hold of you. And I was like, why? Did I win? And she was like, yes.
Oh
We've been
my God.
trying to
Yeah.
contact you. Like, where have you been? And I was like, I was checking my email like every hour on the hour. And then I finally just let it go. And I guess I haven't looked in a week.
That's amazing. Yes.
So I won that teacher training and I got certified to teach. And then 3 months later, put my 2 months in at my job. I was like, you guys have to have me for 2 more months. And then I'm out of here. And everybody was like, well, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And I was just like, I have no idea, but I am out of here.
Done.
Like,
I'm
I just
done.
knew
Yeah.
it wasn't authentic anymore.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And that was a
mean,
big leap too.
It's a leap, but also like the universe is showing you signs, like for that, like to have that certainty of like, I need to pursue this. And then the universe lands it in your lap. Like that's pretty undeniable.
There were a lot of moments like that for me that happened that were really strange, that can't be explained, like that one. And before that, actually, I don't know if you remember when I first went to a hypnotherapist, and I always kind of talk about the first time I did this because that tapped me into the jacuzzi for the brain. For the first time in my life, I was like, oh, that actually felt nice to slow down. Whereas before that, meditating sounded awful to me. Like, it didn't make sense.
Right.
But when I went to a hypnotherapist and I tapped into that like jacuzzi of the brain, like space, it felt like it was rewarding. Like I wanted to go back there and I started craving that time. And so I started going to a meditation studio. It's called the Den Meditation. And I was like, I was going like multiple times a week and just sitting in silence. And I started craving, I decided I wanted to do a silent retreat. And guess what? The Den Meditation did another Instagram. So this was like a totally different studio, another totally different Instagram competition. And I entered that one. You remember this because you were one of my posts that I entered with it. We were talking about it. You and I were together in Manhattan Beach, which is weird. Now that's where I live.
So weird.
Yeah. And that was like a whole summer. They waited like 3 months to announce the winner. And I remember sitting in a meditation once thinking, I'd gotten off of Instagram because I was like trying to just take some time away. I deleted it from my phone. I remember sitting in a meditation and being like, oh, I wonder what happened with that competition. I hadn't checked in 2 months. And I had this feeling, this is like the manifestation, I think at its best, where it's like finding the emotion. What does that look like to you? Like I had this feeling, I felt myself calling up one of my girlfriends, Haley, who you know, and me just being like, you are not going to freaking believe this, but I won. And that was the vision that I had and the feeling, like I could feel it in my body.
Yes.
Like I had this conversation
Yeah.
with her in that meditation. I get up, it's like a middle of the week at 6 p.m. and I'm like, oh shit, I got to get groceries. I got to go to the grocery store. I remember I get up, I run out the door, I get in the elevator and I'm like, I should check and see if they ever announced a winner. And I get on my phone. I don't have Instagram, so I had to go through the web browser and log in. It was like this whole thing. And I go to their page and they had posted 10 minutes prior.
Oh my God.
While I was in the meditation.
Dude.
And it was my face.
Dude.
And my name as the winner.
First of all, the universe so has your back. However, this brings up two things that I think are really important in order for this stuff to be magnetized to you, which is one, you need to show up. Like you need to commit to showing up for yourself in whatever the ways, you were going to yoga. I remember your that phase where you were going to that meditation studio and really putting in the work of meditating. And I just remember being so impressed because that is hard. Yoga is one thing. It's physical. Like you can like literally see the benefits, but to stick to meditation like that, which we all know how much it pays off, but it's for some reason really hard to do. So you showed up, which is the number one thing like that you need to do if you want to create change in your life. And also I talked about this with my Kundalini teacher, and she's on the episode that will launch actually this week when we're recording this. She talks about Kundalini and that it's an opportunity for you to stay still so the universe can find you.
Yeah.
And that language just resonated so much with me. It's like, oh yeah, we're constantly buzzing, thinking, moving. Like, how does the universe know what we want or where to find us to deliver it? And so what you just shared is such a powerful example of those two things.
It's the constant reminder. And I know, like, now that I have my own business, and I know you've experienced this as an entrepreneur, it's this constant reminder that sometimes doing nothing and leaning back is actually the most potent thing you can do.
Yes.
And it feels really hard when you're like, you've got a business and you're like, for me, it's like you're trying to bring in clients. You're trying to get on Instagram. I've got a podcast. I'm like trying to do. And I've had to readjust and remember those, like go back to those like really magical moments. Like I'm telling this story now and I haven't thought about it in a long time. It's like you forget these incredible things that happen, these signs, these moments of like, that is proof. Like, and you know, it's happened again recently in my business where when I got pregnant, first trimester, I was like pretty much down for the count. I was seeing clients, but I just kind of gave up showing up on Instagram, which was fine. I was like, that was part of my own self-care. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about the podcast. I'm just going to show up for my clients when I need to be there. And then I'm going to nap in between. And I had the most lucrative, like 3 months in my business to date.
Yes.
Which,
yes. Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Like you let go of the grasp and let the universe just do its thing. It's like, you're here, you've done the work, you've created this platform and this space. Like,
yeah,
now
it's when you release that gripping and show up for the energetic practice.
Yes. Yes. I love that, and such a great story and great example. And we also forgot to mention that Brooke is a singer and a country singer, and like quite a good one. And you guys, there's a music video that Maddie and I are both in. This girl shut down Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, which is like the busiest street in America. And we walked down it. We strutted across it and created a music video. So I think we'll probably have to link that.
Yeah, we are totally going to have to link that. I mean, and even for a second, we'll just a nod to this. Like, we didn't actually shut it down. We didn't actually have a permit to film that, but we figured out all the loopholes that if it wasn't a standing camera and it was a moving camera, we didn't have to have a permit. And then we just kept walking down Sunset Boulevard whenever people we would just, move out of the way and keep filming. And it turned into this really great, DIW, like do it yourself, right? Or DIW, like do it yourself, but awesome music video that looks and appears to be all one shot, which is really cool. Thanks to my amazing friends who showed up and we're part of it.
That was
creativity
epic.
Its best.
That was epic. We will link it, both of us in a different lifetime. But it was a lot of fun. But like I said, you are now this incredible hypnotherapist. And I know that the conversation around, you work with mostly women and help women through many different stages of things. And I know you've kind of diversified and can go in any direction that someone needs. But I think burnout has become one, we're all experiencing it, but it seems to have kind of risen to be a passion of yours and something you really specialize in. So I want to dive into that. And can you first tell us what's your definition of burnout?
So burnout is a really interesting thing. And I think the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I experienced it and I found a way out for myself.
Yes.
And so I look at burnout, being a hypnotherapist, naturally, I'm going to look at it through the lens of the subconscious mind. And there's so much that goes into it around our belief systems and our identity. And then also our habits, like our thought habits, how we talk to ourselves, our relationship to ourselves, and then our nervous system. So at a subconscious level, the reason I say this, that burnout is actually very subconscious, is because it's very deeply ingrained from the time that we're born. As little girls, we're kind of taught be perfect, be good, right? And so we then spend the rest of our lives kind of trying to perform. And so it's that inner child work that comes in as an adult when you're in your own business at a subconscious level. Because I see this happen a lot I did this myself. I see this happen with clients. Like you might be burnt out and you might remove yourself from one situation, but you find yourself in the same situation in a whole new business.
Yeah, because it's almost
Yeah.
like you're conditioned to operate. And sorry if this is what you said, I'm breaking it down in simpler terms, but you're conditioned to operate in a certain way, and that way is probably actually out of alignment with like your best interest or what your true self, but it's a pattern that you have to break consciously. Like you can't,
Yeah.
or I guess subconsciously, you have to be aware of and then break the patterns, right? And the
Yeah.
conditioning.
Yeah, it's almost like it's become like the result of a coping mechanism of like, this is how I'm going to survive and this is how I'm going to get love, which are two really basic needs. And a lot of us, if we look at fight or flight, it's really just like our nervous system has been functioning in fight or flight for so long. Usually when there's burnout, you've been functioning at that level for a really long time and you don't feel it for a while because you're like, there's adrenaline and that feels good and you're getting shit done and you're getting rewarded and you're making money and like your business is growing. And so you've been functioning at that level for a really long time, but it's not actually sustainable for your body and mind. But also there's a lot of identity tied to it. Like, who am I if I slow down? You and I have kind of talked about this. Like, who am
Yes.
I if I step back? What do I do with myself? A lot of my clients will come and say like, well, I don't want to slow down because I don't really want to have to sit with myself. Like, then I have to
That's,
actually like listen to the thoughts. Or what am I avoiding by not slowing down?
yes. Yes. Uh, there's just
And
so
so we
many.
have to train the nervous system to actually enjoy slowing down again, because it's at the most basic level, we're working with homeostasis, and the nervous system wants to keep you at homeostasis. The body and mind want to keep you at homeostasis. That's how we survive.
Yeah. And how does someone recognize if they're burnt out? Because when you are, as I've experienced, and for me, it was a rock bottom. And actually, the really tragic and sad realization of like, oh, actually, I've been burnt out for probably 5 years. And now I'm just recognizing it because my body has stopped functioning. But how,
Yeah.
like,
Well, and that a lot
beyond
of times, yeah.
before
I
that,
mean,
how would someone recognize it?
right. It's different levels. Here's the thing. I think some of us who are really big, ambitious go-getters, it's going to take your body talking to you and telling
Mm-hmm.
you something's wrong. Like for me, I was in events, 31 years old, diagnosed with high blood pressure,
Right.
even though I
Yes.
was physically healthy,
Yes.
right? If you're not going to make the change for yourself, your body will tell you,
Yes.
right? Through illness or disease or whatever comes up. And I think when we're really ambitious and there's a lot of things that we like, we want to check all the boxes and like win and we want to do well, right? So it's hard sometimes to see, but being willing to listen to your body. And I think that's why it goes all the way back to, as little girls, a lot of times we have experiences that teach us to disconnect from our bodies, whether that's through trauma or just simply being taught, like, don't trust your gut, like, be logical, or don't cry, don't feel your emotions because, don't do that,
Dude,
right?
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, now that I have a little girl myself. When something this actually like hits such a nerve in me when she falls or something happens to her and someone says, "You're okay."
Yeah. So I've had a conversation with my husband about this because he, Justin, he's amazing. And his way of soothing the situation is to say, you're okay. You're okay. And I had to explain to him recently because we have a baby on the way. And I said, I know that when you say you're okay to me, what you're saying is like, it's okay. I'm here for you. It's okay to feel the way you're feeling. But when we have our child, that what that's doing is it's actually bypassing what they're actually feeling. And it's saying,
Yes.
you're not sad. You're not hurt. You're okay. when
Yeah.
someone is clearly hurting.
Yes. Yes.
So this is a little bit of like subconscious conditioning that a lot of us, I think, have experienced. I know that was a big one for me. Or like, don't be so sensitive, right? Don't cry. Like, and then so what happened is I learned to not validate my emotions and myself. Like they weren't validated externally. And I didn't learn to validate my own emotions. And then I didn't have emotional regulation. So then when we go back to my Hollywood days, as you so observed, my kind of train wreck days, they were amazing. They were so amazing. I loved them. I wouldn't give them up. They were so much fun. But also they were a bit of a train wreck, and which
But we're
is
not
why I
going
love being
back
where I
to
am
the
today. But those days were really driven by like not having an ability to emotionally regulate. But what I've learned and what I teach my clients is all emotions, whether it's joy and happiness or anger and frustration, emotions are just energy in motion. It's a physiological sensation in the body. And the first step to working with them is actually recognizing and allowing them to be present.
Yeah.
So most of us learn to bypass, and that causes a whole lot of problems.
Yes.
And so that's the disconnection to your body. And then that leads to burnout because you're completely unaware of the fact that your body is begging you to slow down and
Yeah.
recharge.
I mean,
But also,
no, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I think the big thing too is like a lot of people are almost like afraid to open the floodgates. Like if I go there, if I actually say
Right.
I'm angry about this, am I a bad person? Is it like going to open the floodgates and I won't be able to make it stop? Like there's a lot of fear around just actually admitting that you feel something that you've been taught is quote negative.
Yeah.
But what's really cool about the work is when you learn to actually turn towards it, and there's release techniques we do in hypnosis where we learn to relate to it differently so that your emotions just become this kind of like, oh, all right, this is floating by. I don't act out of it anymore.
Well, I have a really good example because you and I are working together right now because I mean, you probably could have called it years ago. I'm burnt out.
I never thought I would see the day though that you'd say it yourself. It's crazy.
Yes. Or even, I mean, I said it in my head for probably a year before I was able to say it out loud. And even that, it was like, okay, in the process of that, like I said, I realized I've probably been burnt out for 5 years, maybe more. And the stuff that's happened in those 5 years, like, holy shit. And all the lessons that came, all the things the universe was trying to show me that I was like, nope, I got to keep going. But you and I together are we're working together. You're hypnotizing me, which I also realize is so powerful. And so it has been so powerful and it's so interesting because I'm like, we're so close and you know so much about my life and we're friends. And I'm like, my friend has a fucking superpower because I am hypnotized right now. I don't think I could lift my head if I wanted to. She is like she is in control.
Well, you could lift your head if
yeah.
you wanted to, but you feel safe
Totally.
enough not to. So.
Yes, totally. But it's like this is magic. But I feel so safe. So yes. But our last session earlier this week, was talking about anger and being able to feel the anger and feeling safe, a lot of things. But one of the big things that we talked about was the not bypassing anger and the ability to be okay and feel safe enough to feel it. For like what I feel like I need is this like dumping of it, like to get it out. Right.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of signs for me that it's time to do that. Your work has really helped. And literally right after we got out of our session, that was put to the test. And in a way where I was really able to feel the anger through, if anyone's been listening from the beginning, you kind of know this, there's this narcissist VC that's on our cap table that is just awful. And he's been gone for a few months, like out of my hair, came back in literally this week and has been awful. And I don't feel fear, like a lot of the other stories that come along with it, I've been able to get rid of. But there's this fucking rage in me. And this was the first time, and I really think it's from working with you, this is the first time that I've been like, okay, that sucks. I'm okay with it though. And like, how do I now process it and get it out of me instead of bypassing it? I literally, before we got on here, was like looking up rage rooms in LA because I'm like, I just need a physical release. Like, I don't, if you
Yeah.
guys don't know what a rage
Throw
room
some
is,
axes.
you
Yeah.
literally go and like break shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And also we did this, I think you'd be so proud. We did this incredible thing that you taught me, which we're working with inner child stuff, was like talk to your inner child and see how she wants to handle a situation. And for a minute I was like, I think my inner child might be a mob boss because she is the one, she wants to bury people. But when I sat within meditation, she wanted to, she was like, this is not right. We are angry and it is okay to push back in a way that doesn't make us look bad. We feel good, but we need to push back a little bit,
Yes.
versus me like being like, no, I have to take the higher road. I can't say anything. I have to be. And I fucking did a little bit. I just gave a little jab in there in a final email that was like, it was like, fuck you, go fuck yourself, and not in those words, but people knew what it meant, and it felt really good. It felt really good. It like satisfied. It was like, girl, we're heard. And now let's go process this anger.
Yeah. And what you were saying, the piece about the inner child work that's so powerful is actually turning to your inner girl and saying, you're angry, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I care about the fact that you're angry. I care about that. It's okay to be angry.
Yes.
It's a perfectly normal human response to be angry. You're allowed to be angry.
Yeah.
This is frustrating. Anybody would be angry. Stomp your feet.
Yeah. And it was she reminded me like, this is not the first man. It's like, he's the same. My dad, my stepdad, they're all one, they're all basically the same person. And like, now you're in a position where you can stand up and you don't have to be afraid. And like, so it was a win. And I thank you for, and we're going to continue to work together and have a long ways to go. But it was what I needed this week to like deal with that situation for sure.
Yeah. And don't worry, next week we'll get to the processing of it. We'll do more. But that's the thing about like inner child work that's so powerful. And when we pair it with hypnosis, because like a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, I've done inner child work before. And I'm like, great. Now we're going to do it when you're in the state of hypnosis, when you're actually accessing subconscious. And that it's not that we go back to any trauma. We don't go back. What we do is we bring your inner child here into this world. We upgrade her into this world. You're the parent now. And you use language like, you're angry. I understand you're angry. It's okay to be angry. I'm here for you. What should we do about it? You give her a sense of autonomy and power back that maybe was taken from her as a child. And you give her an opportunity to heal. And what's crazy about it is that it feels kind of like you actually go back and rewrite history.
Yes.
From a healing perspective.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
Yeah. So tell me if I'm understanding this right. Obviously, people, once you're really burnt out, you kind of know, and you should seek help. But could burnout, or I mean, let's talk about how burnout could be prevented, but also like, are you saying that whether you feel burnt out or not, you could easily get on a path to it if you're not dealing with the conditioning and stories that are within your subconscious?
Yes. I mean, not everybody is susceptible to it depending on what subconscious conditioning you were raised under. I mean, a lot, but it's very common. Another big piece of burnout is not being able to set boundaries or protect your own energy. Most of us weren't taught how to do that.
Sure. For sure.
So that's why I say, yes, if you're not like looking at what are some of the automatic programs that are running your life. I mean, 90% of our mind is subconscious. We all should be looking at what are those automatic programs that are running our life.
Yeah. So how do we how do we do like a spring cleaning of our subconscious?
Well, and that's where all of these practices come in, where a big thing that I say a lot is like, you have to practice calm first. So just tapping into calm for a few minutes a day, whatever that means to you, whether that's going for a walk without any devices, or it's doing an actual meditation or doing Kundalini, doing some breath work, tapping into calm and actually getting present in your body. Because what that does is that builds awareness. It builds something called interoceptive awareness, which is your ability to detect your own needs in real time. What do I need emotionally? What do I need physically?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So when you can actually start getting in tune with what you need, then you can actually start like setting some boundaries around it.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I actually need rest this morning, or I need to say no, or I need to set a boundary. So, first we have to just get back into our bodies. And I think for me, it was yoga.
Yes.
Like that's
Yep.
what did it for me. That
Mm-hmm.
was the gateway. And then
Yeah.
hypnosis was the gateway drug to more meditation.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I do what I do, because that was a tool that gave me direct access back to becoming more aware of my own mind, my own thoughts, what was happening. And kind of like this aha moment went off. And what's beautiful about like subconscious work and understanding that 90% of your mind is subconscious is that you start to realize, and there's going to be things you'll peel away the layers for the rest of your life, but being aware and willing to look at them and not just operate on autopilot. Because if you're on autopilot, then you're basically living your life based on a set of rules and belief systems and identities that were set by the time you were 8 years old.
Yes. Yes. Can you talk about that a little bit? Just, I think it's great to know, but also for anyone who has kids, can you talk about the like first 7 years of life and like
Yeah.
how the brain develops?
Yeah. So prior to the age of 8, we don't have a critical filter. We're kind of like walking around in hypnosis, essentially. And
Mm,
that's why kids are so creative. They don't have a filter that's been conditioned yet to tell them that things are good or bad or right or wrong or socially acceptable.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so we start learning through repetition and association where neurons are firing, we're developing a sense of identity, a sense of self, belief systems about like what we're capable of. And that comes from family systems. It comes from modeling from our parents. It comes from culture. It comes from our teachers and classroom. Like, it comes from everywhere, but culturally and also how you watch your parents talk about money, how you watch mom. Did she set boundaries? Did she protect her energy? For our parents' generation, for the most part, I think our moms, like, God bless, my mom's amazing, but boundaries were not really taught. I mean, this is kind
Yes.
of I also think too, with like the shifting role of women in society, right?
Right.
We're allowed to set boundaries in some ways too, culturally. Like that
Well,
wasn't, I think,
you just
go ahead.
access to the conversation and the information, like who boundaries, just that word just came around like 8 years ago. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that's a new
Yeah.
word to most people.
Yeah. And by boundaries too, I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent for a second, because boundaries was a really hard one for me for a long time. I loved inner child. This is again why I use inner child work so much in my practice, is because when we think about, there's a child version of us. That's the version of us that's having the hard time saying no. She's the one who wants to please. She wants to feel safe. She wants to feel loved. She wants people to like her because that was a survival mechanism, right?
Yeah.
And so when we think about, what do I need to put in place to protect that little girl? It's easier for us to do that for our children than it is to actually do that for
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes. Totally.
So creating a construct that's sort of like outside of ourself and running boundaries through that lens is really powerful. What I think is interesting is like, there's personal boundaries. So it's, the things you set up for the rules that you set for yourself. Like, I'm going to eat a certain way. I'm going to get to sleep at a certain time. And then there's interpersonal boundaries where, in relation to other people, you have a right to choose who gets access to your energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think sometimes I see this a lot with like professional women who are working for these like big tech companies, where they wake up and they're immediately dinged on Slack and they're expected to check their email at 5 a.m., and then they check their email again at 10:30 before they go to sleep at night. You have to choose. You have basically offered yourself to that company, but you can just not answer emails before 8 a.m. You have to make that choice though.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And you can just stop answering emails after 6:30 p.m. But
Yes.
you have to do it. So that's a big thing, is like choosing for yourself to put those tourniquets in place. And I do think culturally, like these companies will tend to hire or prey on people that they see are willing to not set those boundaries.
Well, I think it's that, and it's also like, cool, if you're not setting, if you don't have the boundary, like why, there's nothing, I'm not going to set a boundary for you as your boss. Like, cool, you're
Yes.
willing to work all hours. Great. That's perfect. But
Yes.
when you show up and set those boundaries, and as someone who's been a boss and like been through that with employees, it's like, I now would respect someone way more having, I ended up getting to a place where I was able to set boundaries for our team and say like, because I was setting my own, like, hey, we're not going to answer
Yeah.
emails on the weekends, you know, like I don't expect an answer from you past 6 p.m. Like, but when people aren't setting those boundaries for themselves, you're like, okay, it's not even like from a place of I want to take advantage of you. It's just like, well, you answered the email last time at 8 p.m. So like, of course you'll do it again. And like, you
Yeah.
know,
And it's so
Go ahead.
interesting, because when you first start to do that, when you first start to like not answer emails, how uncomfortable does it feel in your body?
Oh yeah, but it's only you. No one else gives a shit.
Yeah.
It's only, you know, it's only like you and your inner critic that even like thinks anything
Yeah.
of it. You know, it's like,
It's your nervous system flaring up, because your nervous system is like, this isn't how we've done it. This isn't who we are. We need to do a good job. All these belief systems, subconscious belief systems. You got to show up. You got to do a good job. What happens if they don't like that I did this, right? And so the nervous system actually shows up in a physical way to try to keep you at homeostasis. But like what I do with my clients in this situation is we do a bubble hypnosis where we create the bubble and then we start to flip the script a little bit. And I also think boundaries aren't just good for you. Boundaries are good for the people around you. So
yes,
when we start to think of it that way, they create more connection, they create more communication.
yes.
When you're just teaching people how they can connect and communicate with you. And so everybody does better.
Yeah, they help people feel safe. And if you are a leader of a team, like it's so important for you to set boundaries and be that example and allow your team to feel safe to set their own boundaries too. It's such an interesting topic.
Yeah.
But how does hypnotherapy work exactly?
Yeah. Okay. So hypnosis itself is just alpha theta brainwave state. It's a calm state of focused attention, and it's somewhere between awake and asleep. So you're not well, sometimes people who've been working with me for a while might go completely unconscious for parts of it. But it's really just a very calm state. It's a meditative state, essentially, but we use eye fascinations and imagery and mind body techniques to get the mind into that state quicker. So if you're someone who has a hard time with meditation, like I was, hypnosis will help the brain that slow down way quicker than, say, like if you're sitting on your own trying to meditate. It sort of taught me how to do it, so that I could then go off and develop a meditation practice. So anyway, we get into this alpha theta brainwave state. And when we're in that state, the left brain is less active. Left brain is logic, right? And there's that critical filter is in the left brain. Right brain is more active. So you got that creativity going. So what happens is that critical filter is what keeps you. It's sort of like filtering your experience during the day when, say, you're not in hypnosis, you're moving around in beta brainwave state, you're focused. That filter is constantly filtering your perception based on your beliefs and identity. So what we want to do is try to get past that to create new subconscious beliefs. So when we get into hypnosis, the filter relaxes. It's sort of, think of like a bouncer in a club and one of your girlfriends is distracting the bouncer and you run in. I've never done that before.
Yeah.
But it gives you access to subconscious. And then once we're in that state, so you're tapping into subconscious, and we use imagery to create new belief systems, new mantras, new thought processes, new outcomes. Imagery is really powerful because we're running procedural memory in the brain. The brain doesn't know the difference between an actual experience and a visualization. Now, I'm going to also throw a caveat in here because a lot of people, there are some people that can't see images. They close their eyes and they don't see anything.
Really?
That's okay. That's normal. Yeah. There's a certain percentage of the population.
Interesting.
I actually was not the most visual person when I started. So when we say imagery, it's really more like sight, sound. We're getting a sense. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. What does it feel like?
Yeah.
Right? What
Like
does
a
it taste
knowing,
like?
an
A
understanding of
knowing.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like even to a literal degree of, okay, we're going to go into your safe place. Like, is there something you could touch there? Like, can you reach out and feel the petal of a flower between your forefinger and your thumb? Can you smell it? Is there a fire burning in a wood cabin and you can breathe in that smell? Is there salt air? Are you sipping a cool, clean, tall glass of water on a beach or a margarita? I don't know.
Sounds nice. All this sounds nice.
Right? So that sensory, we're using your senses to run neural pathways in the brain. So what happens is the brain experiences it as if it's happening right now.
Mhm.
So that's the
Wild.
mind-body connection.
Yeah.
When you have a stressful thought or you think about something that happened in the past that was stressful, the brain runs neural pathways and it releases cortisol right now in this moment. Your body's reliving it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're writing a gratitude journal, you're writing 5 things you're grateful for down in the morning and you're thinking about someone you love very, very much, the brain releases oxytocin, supports the body in healing, builds immunity right now, thinking about someone that you love, that you're
Yes.
grateful for. That is mind-body connection. That's the power. The power of imagery. So we take that and we pair it with alpha theta brainwave state when we have access to subconscious, and we create imagery journeys for a new way of being. What is the identity of like best self, Brooke? Like stepping into her. How does she feel? How does she show up? What is her posture like? What is she saying? What is she doing? Right? So that's kind of how it works. And then the brain starts to experience it as it creates a new known in the subconscious. So we talk about homeostasis. Now we're training the nervous system to experience a different outcome right now. So that when you do actually step into that role, your nervous system doesn't freak out on you. Or when you do actually go to set the boundary, your nervous system is a little calmer because it's like, we've been here before, we've done this, we know this is safe.
So are you essentially like rewriting the emotional history in the brain, or how would you break it down in simple terms?
You are changing the brain. You are rewiring your brain for sure. 100%. Because what you're doing, neuroscience would kind of take it back. My undergraduate degree was in psychology, and neuropsych was my favorite class, which is so funny because it comes into place so much now.
Yeah.
And I took such a detour. I took like a 10-year detour in the other direction and then just came right back.
Like, I like this, but let me come back to it in 10 years.
Yeah. So, for example, when neurons that fire together, wire together, it's new learning. So when let's say with a trigger, something that's triggering to you, that's super stressful, this like person that you've been dealing with that's really triggering, we can actually get you into a really, really calm state and have you visualize and desensitize your reaction to that person. Because your brain is pairing really, really calm state with an experience. So it's learning a new connection.
Okay, so let's take a really simple example. I have a dream that one day, and if I want to move to the country and have my farm, I have a dream that one day I will not be afraid of snakes. I'm afraid of snakes because my mother is afraid of snakes. Thanks, Mom. So let's just take that. That's like such a simple, non-esoteric example. Tell me how it would work to train my brain via hypnotherapy to not be afraid of snakes any longer.
Well, part of it would be just like a desensitization process of like, first with anybody, we would set a foundation for getting really, really calm and tapping into that really calm state, which you and I have already done.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would we could introduce the idea of a snake and visualize you actually reaching out and touching it. But also there's like some NLP techniques in there where we could like turn the snake into something that's really lovely and wonderful and kind. And like we could think about all the ways that snakes actually help us and all the reasons why snakes are actually have no interest in you whatsoever as a human, that they're just kind of going about their life and they can actually be a companion for you. And we do that in hypnosis. And then you sort of flip the script.
Cool. Okay.
Does that make sense? So then your brain starts to register, oh, this is like this wonderful, lovely part of my ecosystem that's actually helping me. Like, how does a snake help you?
Yeah.
And maybe we could turn it into some magical creature that's like,
it's a baby dragon.
And we could also, there's things that we can do in hypnosis where we could like turn it into like, yeah, it's like a little baby, like it's like a fluffy bunny.
Yeah.
But we got to be careful because I don't want you out there trying to pet snakes.
Yeah, that sounds dangerous. Next thing you know, I'm getting bit by a rattlesnake because I tried to take it home with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So incredible. I mean, it's incredible, one, to hear you talk about this, and it's like so clearly your passion and like so just all so ingrained in you, and you say it all in such a beautiful way. But it really gives a lot of hope, because I think that there's so many tools along the journey, right? And like all of them are important. And even if you do hypnotherapy, you're not saying like, okay, throw out everything else. This is the only thing you need. But what an opportunity this is, and what a great place to maybe like venture into on your journey early on. Is like, we can actually like rewire the brain. Like we don't have to live through the trauma again. We don't have to, it doesn't have to take years to let this go. Like there's actually a direct way to impact this.
I think that that's like really the big take home message, is that you're not stuck. And if I think back to right before I moved to California, I was actually working at a child advocacy center. And I was actually working alongside an LMFT, a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I remember her saying to me at the time, like, Brooke, your brain, like you can literally change your brain. You can literally change it. And at the time I was like, yeah, really? Like, I don't know. I don't really, you think that you feel bad and you're always going to feel bad because you're kind of stuck in this reality, and it's not your fault, because when we're raised a certain way and we have all this messaging coming at us, our brains are like, this is the way it is. This is just, it's important when we have that growth mindset to have that growth mindset and to realize you actually do have control. And now there's just so much neuroscience coming out to back a lot of these techniques that, even just a simple gratitude practice in the morning. I mean, that's one of the first things I put into place years and years ago when I first started doing this work, is that a gratitude practice saved my life. And it's interesting looking back, because then I started reading about it and I learned that when you wake up and you have like a negative, your brain is wired to have negative thoughts. It's the negativity bias. It's cavewoman brain. Totally normal for you to scan your environment for threat.
Yes.
It's just like a puppy. When you get a puppy is going to pee all over the house until you train it to pee outside. You have to train your brain to feel better.
Yes.
When you start practicing like a gratitude journal, so you wake up every morning, and before the gratitude journal, your brain is defaulting, and I want to say it's left side of the prefrontal cortex. I could be getting the science of the sides wrong here, but I want to say left side of the prefrontal cortex is like where that negativity or frustration or anger, those emotions fire. And it's the right side where you're like oxytocin, the good feelings. You get up and your brain is going to lean left. It's going to go left automatically. You wake up and the first thing you do is write down 5 things that are grateful for you. You're running neural pathways and lighting up the right side of the prefrontal cortex. So the more you do this, the more that side of the brain lights up until it becomes your default mode.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're changing the brain.
It's like working a muscle. And it's like, there's a really simple version of this that is talked about a lot in spirituality, but definitely I've most recently heard this in some of the Kabbalah studying I'm doing. And it's like, the simplest version of this is like, darkness and light cannot exist at the same time. Like
Yeah.
you can, if you're in the dark, turn on the freaking light. And what are your practices to turn on the light? Gratitude is something we all have access to, and it's so easy. And it's something, you know, we can find something. I'm grateful to frickin' be awake. I'm grateful for the air. I'm grateful for the grass and the flowers. Like it's something that's so accessible. And just like you said, once you start doing it, then it just becomes, with all of these practices, it just then starts to become a part of who you are and how you operate.
Yeah. And in the beginning, it's kind of repetition because I know you're going to be like, this seems really easy. Like, you got to just do it every single day for 1 week. Do it.
Yeah.
Just get up,
Yeah.
write your 5 things down, and notice after 7 days how you feel.
Yeah.
And when you start to realize that you actually have that power, then what else could you apply it to? I mean, UCLA, their Mindfulness Awareness Research Center, they've been doing brain scans on their participants in mindfulness, showing that after 8 weeks, the amygdala, that's your fight or flight center, the amygdala shrinks after 8 weeks of mindfulness, like literally gets
It's
smaller.
incredible. Yeah.
And so we know this, right? And all these practices, mindfulness is really powerful. And I like to pull it into hypnosis and kind of work with it. And also, mindfulness, when you get into that meditative state, is like hypnosis, right?
Mhm.
So some of these things are very closely related. It's just a matter of getting into that state. You can train your brain to feel better. And but it is like going to the gym.
Yeah.
You got to
Yes.
do it. You got to do your
Yes.
reps. Like
Yeah.
takes back to what you said in the very beginning. You got to do your reps. You got to show
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And I do think part of that too is make it pleasurable. Like don't make it so complicated that you don't want to ever that you
Mhm.
don't want to do it. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I got to sit down for a 20-minute meditation. No, maybe it's 5 minutes. Maybe it's 3 minutes. Like
Yeah.
make it pleasurable. Keep it simple. And for me, with hypnosis, it was what sort of tapped me into that space. And for the first time in my life, it actually felt good to be there. And then I started craving it, which is why it was so hilarious that I was even trying to win a silent retreat. Because if you know me, you know that silence is not my forte.
Yes. We've got a talker on our hands, guys. Yes. Yeah. And how was that experience for you?
Oh, it was excellent, but also, I mean, that's a whole other thing. Silent retreats, it was only 3 days and you got to do at least, it takes 5 days, I think, of a silent retreat to get past the point at which there's this like frustration thing that comes up on like day 4 or 5 of silent retreat, where it's almost like angering because you are sitting with your thoughts. And I only know this, I haven't actually done a longer silent retreat, which one day I will. Now I have a child coming, so I don't know when it's going to happen, but one of these days I might do
In
like the
18
10-day
years.
Vipassana. Yeah. But in 18 years, yeah. But from what I've learned, there's like a hump that happens on day 5. And then after that point, you start coming on the other side. And the reason being is you're sitting with all of those thoughts. All you can do is observe. There's no music, there's no watching TV, there's no reading a book to escape. It's you and your thoughts. And it brings up a lot of shit. But
Oh,
when you get to the other side, it is like, I've never experienced this myself, but I can imagine the freedom that you feel when you just detach from all of that.
yeah. I mean, most people spend 0 minutes a day with their sitting in silence with their own thoughts. So I'm sure it's so confronting. Have you heard of this newer thing, the darkness retreats?
No.
Okay, it's silence and darkness. You're in a pitch black room for days.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think remember how we were talking about keep it pleasurable? I'm not so sure that's for me, but for some people, yeah.
There's something in me that craves that, and maybe it's just because I don't get much silence or space, but I am definitely in a chapter of like, I think I could be with just myself for quite a bit of time, and like enjoy it and get to some things, but that's taken a lot of work to get there. But the darkness retreat, I think about it once in a while and I'm like, could I really do that? I don't know.
I could
Like,
see
imagine
how for some that might be like, that might feel or be intriguing. And I think it's so important that everybody listening to this episode knows that at the end of the day, it's not about like, oh, I need to take care of myself. I should take a bath. I should go to yoga. I should do a silent retreat. It's like, what works for you, what speaks
Yeah.
to you
Yes.
is the most important piece. And I think that's also one of the foundations of like getting a hold of burnout, because I actually was just listening to an episode on, I guess, is it Glennon Doyle's podcast where they were talking about burnout as well. And it was a totally different approach where an author who wrote the book, like Real Self-Care, like crystals and bubble baths not included. Now, I personally love bubble baths. Okay.
Yes. Same.
I love a bath. And
Yeah.
that works for me. But you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, you're not doing it for the wrong reasons. You're not doing it like you're not showing up to yoga to look cute in your yoga clothes and worrying about what you're doing the whole time. It actually gives you an emotional and energetic like release, relaxation.
Yes. Yes.
What do you need to feel? And that's where the self-compassion piece comes in. And that connection to self, the interoceptive awareness.
Yeah.
So whether it's a darkness retreat or just 5 minutes a day on Insight Timer,
yeah,
like it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. I'd love for everyone listening to this episode to just like commit to seeing what that is for them and like do it. Summer, we're heading into summer, like it's a time to be a little more chill. And like, what will you give yourself this summer? Is it, hey, I'm going to start a little garden, and my time and space in the garden, that is my chill, that's my calm, that's my self time? You know, is it, I'm going to set up a lounge chair in my yard and spend 30 minutes a day reading a book or going for walks, whatever it is. Like, I would challenge everyone to kind of think about that and like create something for themselves for the next few months and just see what it brings.
And put it on the calendar and honor it.
Yes.
And I know it's like you've got Bowie, you've got a little one. I have a little one on the way. I was just having this conversation with Justin about, he knows, like, for me, yoga really is that's what keeps my nervous system calm. So he and I have already started talking about strategies to make sure I have time to go to yoga. And he's been making jokes about not being able to surf as much. And I'm like, honey, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you can get in that water, because you are a different person when you come back.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it's like, that's a great retraining of a story too. Like, yes, there are compromises maybe that come with having a kid, but you don't have to like, it's not all or nothing. You can still hold on to the things that you love, the things that like make you who you are, and be a parent and raise a kid. And it's almost more important that you do, as you've touched on in this episode, it's almost more important now than ever that you do that.
Yeah. And this is like another piece of burnout that people think like, oh, it's selfish, right? Me to take time for myself. Really though, you have to be able to do these things so you can energetically show up for your business, your family, whatever it is. Again, being able to practice these little things, like bring in I call it the calm gym, right?
Yeah,
and whether that's surfing or the Korean spa, which, you know, you and I both
miss
love,
it.
right?
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as I can't do hot tubs right now. It's such a bummer.
Yes, that is a bummer.
It's such
as soon
a bummer.
as that baby's
it's
out,
honestly
we're going to the Korean spa.
The hardest thing about pregnancy is not being able to sit in a hot tub.
It'll be worth it.
I digress, but yeah, we had a hot tub we went skiing a couple months back, and there's a hot tub, and I just looked at it longingly because it was like snowing. We were up in
legs
up in the mountains.
That's what I did on one vacation. I was like, all right, I'll put my legs in. I'll stand in the hot
tub.
Oh
yeah, legs in. Yeah. But it's like not as good. I'm like, can I just dip real quick? I don't know, maybe. So anyway, yeah. I think that's another piece of burnout, though. It's all the reasons why you come up with, and also looking at like I want to kind of touch on this. We didn't really touch on this yet. I think you asked the question earlier about how do people know they might be entering burnout earlier than like their body telling them. A big one I see is this busy woman syndrome. I'm busy. I've got this going on. I've got to help my friend. I've got to do this. Like trying to be there for everybody and wearing busy like a badge usually means underneath of that, there's something else going on there.
Yes. Well, something funny that you said to me when I was like, how do you know if I don't know if it was burnout, but it was something in that direction. It was like, if you're asking, you already know.
Yeah.
If you're asking
You're
like, burnout, how would I know if I'm burnt out? Like, you're burnt out, babe.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you know.
Yes, I do remember you. Yeah, I had shared something about my program and feeling anxious or feeling stressed, and you're like, define anxious and stressed. And I said, if you gotta ask, you are.
Yes. Yeah.
We all
So
are to some degree. I mean, culturally, condition, the way our world is set up with our phones and the TV and the blue screen, and they're constantly being bombarded with what's happening on the other side of the world. We're going to be leaning towards that. I think we have to understand that all of us are being impacted by this kind of like modern way of being that's not good for our happiness, and it's not good for our nervous system. So we all need the calm gym. We all need it.
yes.
And we have to train the nervous system to experience some sense of calm throughout our day. And that's what builds resilience over time. Because resilience is not that you'll never be stressed out. It's that how quickly can my nervous system go from fight or flight back to rest and digest? And most of us don't ever go back to rest and digest. We just live in fight or flight. So we have to practice hitting the off switch.
And I literally just had an entrepreneur friend came and met me this morning at 6:30 for a walk. And he's early on in his business. And I was trying to tell him, like, hey, he was talking about the adrenaline, all of the things you've touched on. Like, we had such a crazy week. My adrenaline's so high. I can't calm down. Like, it's just go, go, go. And I'm like, I know this is hard to hear early on in your business and you probably don't believe me, but like, you need to nip this in the bud right now, because let me tell you from experience, like, you will get to a place where you are so exhausted, you can't show up for your family, you can't show up for your friends, you already weren't showing up for yourself. It may make you hate your business, it may make you question everything about life. Like, please, everyone listening, like, do not go there. Do not let yourself get there. Like, it is a really, really scary place to be. And like, there's so many tools to help you not get to that place, not go that far.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to drop a link to my sleep hypnosis download. It's a free download. So you guys can have that for sleep. And sleep is obviously another foundational factor, but more importantly, listening as you fall asleep at night to any hypnosis is helping to train the brain to kind of go from that busy thinking mind into that more calm space very quickly. So this is actually how I got started. I worked with a one-on-one hypnotherapist, but then I was like, let me see about this. Like, I started listening to hypnosis recordings at night as I fell asleep. I'd probably fall asleep like 10 minutes into them, but I started training my brain to tap in quicker. So now I don't need that. I mean, we were just talking about right before we hit record, Brooke, I was saying, I'm coming into third trimester of pregnancy and my sleep has not been great this week. And as a hypnotherapist, it's like I'm trying to figure out all the ways that I can improve it. But I'm also so grateful for my ability to go back to sleep after I've woken up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have interrupted sleep, but it's not horrible because I'm able to just be like, okay, I'm up. Now I'll go back to sleep.
Yes. And
so that ability is really powerful.
Yeah, that's such a tool that I think people would die for. That's the worst. That's the worst thing to experience. And Dennis, my husband, has that. Like, if he's awake, it's really hard for him to go back to sleep. I don't have that for the most part these days, but like, it's torture.
And it plays into your stress response during the day. It's the same response, like the ability to go from like someone cut me off on the 405 and I'm like raging to I'm actually relaxed. Everything is fine. Coming down off of that. When you practice it at night, you'll notice a difference in your day to day. Like you'll be less triggered. You'll be able to transition back into calm more quickly.
Yeah, I love that. So along those, super excited for everyone to experience that, including myself. So thank you for offering that. How can people work with you?
So I offer a free 30-minute consultation for anybody that's interested in chatting and just sharing where they're at and how hypnotherapy can help them. So I'll send you the link, Brooke, so you have it. Anybody who's interested in popping on a call and we can, discuss what you're feeling right now, and I can kind of explain the process a little bit more, how it would apply to you. I work with people one-on-one anywhere in the world. I've got clients in South Africa and
Ooh,
London.
cool.
Yeah. So it's all virtual. And I think, Brooke, you can kind of attest to this. Like, you're actually only 25 minutes away, but we still see each other virtually.
Yeah.
It's fun because the sound system I'm getting right in your ears. You mentioned earlier I was a singer-songwriter in another life. So it's kind of like having me write a personal song for you and then
Ooh, I like
deliver it
that.
back to you in your own words, these imagery journeys. So it's it's a really interesting process. And yeah, I'd love to chat with anybody who's interested in learning a little bit more.
You have such a voice for hypnotherapy too. Like, it's so good. It's so relaxing. And I know you put on this hypnotherapy voice too when you're in it, but it's just like, it's good. It's relaxing, calming on its
Eyes
own.
are closed.
Yes, that's it. That's it. I'm like, where did my friend go? It's so good and it's so fun. I want to close out by sharing for those of our listeners who, are a little more like me and woo woo and like relating to your story, but also, curious about comparing themselves to you astrology wise and human design wise. I love to share that. So you are human design for all my human design geeks. You are a manifesting generator, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up your astrology last night. So our birthdays are just a few days apart. We're both Cancer sons. July babies, the best month in my opinion. And you ready? I know you don't know these, so drum roll. So your moon sign, which moon is what moon kind of rules emotions. It fully rules emotions. You're a Capricorn moon.
Okay.
At high level, what that means is you kind of hold back emotionally. You're a bit more reserved emotionally. At least that's your like go-to. It could mean that things could kind of like
My mask.
fester and boil up. And yes. Your biggest lesson, I wrote this down because I was like, I think she probably would like to hear this. Your biggest lesson as a Capricorn moon is to relax and feel your heart and know that emotions are nothing to fear.
Oh, that's my whole mission in life. Gosh. It's so funny reading that to me. That's literally what I had to learn. And now that's what I teach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
really pretty beautiful. And we can share more. And this will be no surprise to anyone who knows anything about astrology listening. You are a Leo rising. Leo, and I don't know how much you know about Leo. Leo is like the actor, the like out there, showy, like fearless, like has, confidence, is like the performer.
Oh, yeah, that checks out. Mm-hmm.
And your rising is like kind of how people view you, how you kind of show up, your like how you show up, like your outer world.
That's funny.
So
that
it's
is
wild.
So funny. You texted me last night that you looked up my astrology and then you were like, wow, this is interesting. And I was like, uh-oh.
Oh,
but this
is
so
good.
On point.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know how I've not, astrology is like one of those areas where, and I've worked with an astrologist once or twice and it's always amazed me. But it's like it's just this area that like I haven't personally dabbled into. That's something like I need someone like you to kind of guide me, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just not my area of expertise.
Yeah, happily. It's so fun for me. And like, yes, anyone who's into it, after hearing your story, your journey, and understanding that you're a Cancer sun, a Capricorn moon, and a Leo rising will just be like, yes.
They'll just know.
Yeah. Anyone who has those signs like within their system, like I think it'll be really inspiring for them to hear your journey and be like, okay, she did that this way. She stumbled through this. She had this learning. Like I can relate to that at this where I'm at in this point in life. So so that's a lot of fun. Last question. You have 10 seconds with someone and they've asked you to share something that could impact their life. And sorry, I didn't prep you for this question.
Oh my God. I'm making it up on the spot.
what would you say to someone in 10 seconds that you feel would have the most impact on their life from your experiences?
Just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true.
That's good. Yeah.
That was a realization that I had, I don't know, 9 years ago when I first started on this journey, and it changed my life.
Yes. Yeah. Because then you can, if you have that understanding, you can then examine the thought, right? And take the opportunity to say, is this true? Is this not?
And what thoughts do I want to go with?
Yeah, where do I want to go? And what's this for me recently? I've been going down that exact track every time. The ability to even acknowledge it is like huge and takes some work, right? But then you almost follow down the rabbit hole and be like, okay, what we've talked, exact work you do is like, where did that thought come from? And a lot of times you realize like, oh shit, that's not natural to me. That came from a very different place, and it's not actually a place that I agree with or anyone I would be taking advice from these days, or a lot of that stuff happens. So I love that. That's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough question, but yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, you crushed it. All right, ma'am, where can the people find you?
The people can find me on Instagram at Brooke Ansley Wellness and brookeansley.wellness.com, or the Calm Edge podcast. Of course, my podcast as well. Yes. So it's called The Calm Edge on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube in the Whiskey Wednesday music video.
Oh my God,
and Maddie.
We will be linking that for sure. And if someone wants to book one of those 30-minute sessions with you, should they DM you? Should they email you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, either one. You can DM me on Instagram. You can email me, and I'll just send you the link, and we'll get you on my calendar.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been incredible. I learned a ton, and super grateful for all your knowledge and your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Everyone, please make sure you follow Brooke. If anything in this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend. Share it with maybe a family member. It is for sure a great conversation starter. Maybe there's a difficult conversation you are ready to have with your mom or your dad, or really wanting to understand where some of your conditioning is coming from. This is a great way to ease into that conversation. So please share, review, follow Brooke, and follow us on Instagram, and check out her podcast, The Calm Edge. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.